Hey, it's Hunt. You found Hunt on Saints. We're talking black and gold football. Do us a favor. Hit the like button, share your comments below, and hit that subscription button so you can get all of our content. Enjoy. Start with the Saints. They were back in New Orleans yesterday. I know that because Ross Jackson went and covered practice for LouisianaSports.net and then did interviews and then wrote a story in the Tulane press box and then stayed there too late and they kicked him out and he had to drive home and then send me the story after he got home and wrote the end of it, and I didn't publish it till like 2 o'clock in the morning. But that's why I know the Saints were here, and a few people knew as well. And that's why they went out to Yulman Stadium to watch the one of two practices the Saints are allowing folks to come in and watch. And I have personally never been to a Saints open practice, a Saints practice that allows fans in. But plenty of people have been to lots of them, Ross Jackson being one, Jeff Duncan being another. And many of them who were there last night suggested, hey, good energy from the crowd today, but kind of small crowd. Feels like at this point, like, I'm not going to read too much into the fact that 8,000 people were at practice instead of 15,000 people at practice. I'm not going to go nuts here, but I do think it's a little bit indicative of the temperature around that fan base right now. And it just feels like, as rabid as that fan base is, and trust me, I know that it is, there's just a little bit of a lack of edge right now. I don't know if I want to call it apathy. I think that's a little strong, but I think you could go as far as to say people are disheartened. I think you could go as far as to say as people are a lot more level-headed in August with this team than, generally speaking, you would be. I mean, look, I talked to Jeremy Hill right across this set once about a couple of the Cincinnati teams that he played for, and I said, look, y'all were not good once the dust settled in January, but in August, did you think you were good? He said, oh, we thought we were going to win the Super Bowl. And I feel like fans are like that too. You feel like you're going to be really, really good. It's just the hope is always there before you play a game, before you take a loss. And I just don't sense that unbridled optimism that August generally cultivates around the Saints fan base right now. And maybe that's indicative of the fact that they had 8,000 people at practice, and maybe I'm just reading way too much into it. However, it did sound like that things went pretty well in the practice. It sounded like that Derek Carr had a pretty good day. Ross highlighted his performance over at LouisianaSports.net, and sounds like he had a good day. And you're getting towards the time of camp where it's time to put that roster, set it, and go play. And so there are a lot of folks battling for time. And Dennis Allen spoke to the media last night and kind of gave his message to those guys who are theoretically on the bubble.
That's what this game's all about, right? You know, when the lights come on and you have an opportunity to make a play, do you make the play? And it's really not that complicated. It's not that difficult. Like, you either did or you didn't. The nature of our league is when you're put into positions to make plays, okay, then you have to make those plays. And if you make those plays, then, you know, consistently, then, you know, we got a spot for you. And if you don't, then, you know, just the nature of the business says, you know, we're going to be looking for somebody else.
As I look at roster spots, start to look at positions, and certainly at wide receiver, you could find a competition at the back end there to try to make the team. I think at safety, you could look at some different guys. Corner, there are guys that are probably good enough to play in the NFL that on a Saints depth chart that's pretty loaded at corner, maybe fighting for a roster spot. But I think maybe the most interesting one to me, and we've talked about this a lot over the last 2 days, is probably running back, because Kamara's not out there, and neither is Kendre Miller. And so you've got a lot of guys who were pretty unheralded 3-4 weeks ago that have gotten a lot of reps and may be able to make the team. And one of those would be me, Jordan Mims. And so Dennis Allen talked about him and some of the other guys on that running back bubble.
I've seen him do some good things for us. And I think, you know, he's in a battle to, you know, be on the roster and be one of the 53. And I think, you know, this week will be important for him, just like the other preseason games have been. And no different than I think James Robinson's kind of in that same boat. You know, Cabote's got to show us what he can do this week. So I think for a lot of these guys, you know, there's some spots that we're still evaluating, and so I think this is an important week for a lot of guys.
And that's where we are in this camp. You've got your install in. You understand who your playmakers are. You understand who you need to keep healthy. And then you've got to figure out over the next 6-7 days who makes this team. And then from that point, you get ready for Carolina. Like that's where we are. So at this point, for the next almost a week, you got guys trying to make the team. Meanwhile, you are looking at different combinations, unfortunately, on the offensive line. We're not necessarily talking about roster spots as much as we're talking about who plays here, who plays there. And Dennis Allen spoke to the competition up there and specifically Oludo.
I'm gonna be really honest with you. I think we got two guys right now that I'd say, without a doubt, we know exactly what we're getting, and that's Caesar and Eric. I feel very comfortable that Tolly's going to be fine over there on the left side, and I think we're still evaluating the left guard, the right tackle. I saw some things that were improved out of Trevor this week, which was positive to see. I think this will be another great week for him to maybe build some confidence off that performance. So, but I think Ole's a guy that, as we've gone through and seeing a significant amount of snaps from him in training camp, which we didn't get an opportunity to see this spring, look, he's a guy that we want to take a look at that spot. And, those guys will compete, and we'll see what happens.
I thought that was a pretty good bite as far as Dennis Allen bites go, because you heard him be pretty honest. This is optimism season. This is, generally speaking, the time where everybody's good and we're proud to see what he's doing, working here. Like, everything is generally pretty positive this time of year. And for him to outwardly say there are 3 offensive line spots that he's not just absolutely digging right now, that is eye-opening to me to hear that. And that's probably the downfall of this entire thing. If we're being completely frank about the situation, if this thing falls apart, it'll be because the Saints up front cratered. I don't think Derek Carr is going to throw 26 interceptions. I don't think the defense is going to finish 26th in the league. If this thing craters and the Saints end up with 5, 6, 7 wins, they won't be able to block. And that's the biggest bite that I took from last night with Dennis Allen. Like, they have 3 spots they're trying to figure out. And we know that. We've known that since they broke camp. But it's not sorted out. And they've got to try to figure that out at some point here. So that's the biggest concern. There are a couple of different topics that I wanted to hit on here towards the end of the segment. One is pass catchers. Juwan Johnson has been out and certainly missed a lot of time. He was available yesterday and was working out. That's a really, really good sign. And Dennis Allen talked about Johnson, who's missed really all of camp.
He was back out here today. I think we'll kind of slowly but surely start to ramp him up and do, a little bit more with him tomorrow, a little bit more the next day, and so it'll be good because, he's a player that, we need him to be out here. We need him, we need Shaheed, we need some of these guys that we're counting on in the passing game so that we can, really start to get the timing and the rhythm in the passing game that I think we're not quite where we need to be right now. And a lot of that is some of the guys that we anticipate, counting on haven't been available.
Foster Moreau, another guy that you would venture to say is going to be part of the equation, catching passes, not to the degree that Juwan Johnson. He's not as explosive a playmaker as Juwan Johnson, but certainly a trusted veteran in the Saints offense.
Yeah, I think he's had a good camp. Look, he was limited in the spring. I think he's moving around a lot better right now than where he was at in the spring. I mean, I think, look, he's a guy that just is consistent in what he does. I probably wouldn't say there's anything flashy about what he does, but he consistently gets his job done.
That's old Foster. He's been pretty consistent since his days here in Baton Rouge. And we'll end on a positive note here because I want to end on a positive note. It's very important. I'm a bright and cheery guy. We'll finish talking about the red zone, which was not a positive point last year for the New Orleans Saints, especially early in the season. They were atrocious in the red zone. They figured some things out later, and they've certainly made that a point of emphasis in camp thus far. Last night was very good in the red zone for New Orleans by all accounts, including Ross Jackson's up on LouisianaSports.net. Derek Carr did a very good job of handling things in the red zone, and Dennis Allen spoke to the work that his offense has put in the red area.
Well, look, I thought it paid off in the game the other day. I think our ability to run the football in the red zone, I think, is important to having red zone success. I thought we did a good job of that on Sunday. And so, yeah, look, I mean, the key is when you get down in the red area, whether it be offensively or defensively, you know, how many times defensively can we make our opponent have to kick field goals, or can we take the ball away? And then offensively, it's about scoring touchdowns. You're not going to win a lot of games if you're having to settle for a ton of field goals down there in the red area. You got to take advantage of your opportunities.
And maybe the biggest highlight was not in the red area. It was actually in the field goal kicking game where Charlie Smith hit a 65-yard field goal. Now, that said, 65-yard field goals are really cool. I'm more interested in who never misses from inside 50 as opposed to who can make it from 65. But it is cool. I don't think he's going to be the kicker. I think Groupie's going to win that job. But 65 yards is quite a boot.
Yeah, Dennis Allen, and he talked about that. And there was actually like 3 questions that people asked about Charlie Smith, which was pretty interesting. But He did say, you know, it's great that we can make a field goal from 65, but he's, you know, we don't want to be kicking field goals from 65 yards more very often. You know, it's more about inside 50. Can you make it? And he said he's gotten more consistent through camp, but I think Groupie's probably going to, but I wouldn't be surprised if Smith gets on with another team because he's got a massive leg, and if he can dial it in, he could be one of the best kickers in the league.
This is completely off on a tangent, but let's just do it anyway. It's still August. Like, humans evolving is an amazing thing in sports. Like, Victor Wembanyama 25 years ago, like, you would have never imagined that would be a guy that was one of the best players in the world. It just nobody was like that. And Kevin Durant kind of paved the way for that, I guess. Field goal kicking, like 50 yards was like an absolute rocket like 20 years ago. And now that's like, we're going to make that. And now you're backing up. Like, somebody's going to make a 70-yard field goal soon, I think.
Yeah, probably, and especially with a lot of these guys that never played football from other sports. A lot of soccer guys. Charlie Smith, I think, maybe played rugby, and I think he played soccer as well. So a lot of these guys in these other sports are starting to realize that they can kick field goals and make a living out of it, and they have massive legs because they were. You know, that's literally all they trained to do was kick balls. So, like, if you can kick a soccer ball, you can probably kick a football, and you could probably kick it 65 yards.
Do we have to credit Les Miles for this entire thing because he went to Australia and started finding punters?
Yeah, I mean,
is this the product of Les Miles farming Australia for punters?
I don't know if Les Miles was literally the first college football coach to try to recruit Australian guys to
probably
punt.
Not, but he had back-to-back guys.
But he had some pretty good ones that did it. So and that's still happening to this day. I mean, the punter for the Saints, Lou Headley, last year he's Australian. So it's definitely a trend that I don't think is going to stop anytime soon.
Yeah, guys can kick really far. That's your Saints report for the day. Hey, it's on. Thanks for watching Hunt on Saints. Before you leave, help us out a little bit. Hit that like button. Leave your comments in the section below and hit that subscribe button so you get all our content right here from Hunt on Saints. We'll see you next time.